Morning bell chant, we'll be doing the 10 Bodhisattva precepts found on page 18. If you'd like to chant along, please do. And if you'd like to just sit and listen, that is fine too. First precept. Do not harm, but cherish all life. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of compassion. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Second precept. Do not take what is not given, but respect the things of others. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of virtue. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Third precept. Do not engage in sexual misconduct, but practice purity of mind and self-restraint. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of purity. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Fourth precept. Do not lie, but speak the truth. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of truth. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Fifth precept. Do not involve yourself in the trade of liquors and drugs which confuse or weaken the mind, but keep your mind calm and clear. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of wisdom. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Sixth precept. Do not speak of the misdeeds of others, but try to understand them with sympathy. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of friendship. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Seventh precept. Do not praise yourself nor condemn others. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of respect. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Eighth precept. Do not withhold your aid, material or spiritual, but give freely of yours wherever there is need. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of wealth and generosity. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. Ninth precept. Do not hold on to anger, but be forgiving. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of happiness. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. 10th precept. Do not disparage the Trinata, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but uphold them. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of faith. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. I now ask that we can sit in meditative silence until the beginning of the service.
invite the incense lighters to come forward, please. And the incense gatha is inside your chant book on page 2. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Morning. Just some courtesy announcements to start us off. We do have, if you're new to the temple, there's restrooms behind the curtains there and also downstairs. If you need to take a break during your service, you can go downstairs. There's an area to walk around. Bathrooms down there also. If you need to get up during the service for any reason to stretch or whatever, just walk around the back there. We invite you to participate in the chants and other activities as you feel comfortable. So when you're chanting, if you could just chant loud enough to hear yourself, not so loud enough that you can't hear your neighbor, so that we can all chant in unison. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand up, and we'll greet each other silently with bows.
Source of understanding and passion, which must be cultivated to know fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, peace, healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to know fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving, supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to know fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindful breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning, and help relieve grief for one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, and practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts.
The next chant is the Heart Sutra on page 4.
Of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceiving the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, and impulse and consciousness. O Shariputra, all of dharmas are empty. They are not formed nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They are not increase or decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight. No realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering. No cease from suffering. No path to lead out of suffering. No knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any elusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all delusive views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharma, the radiant, fearless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest citizen, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhisvaha.
Just remain standing for a minute. So it's traditional at the beginning of a service or a practice session to do prostrations to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. So sometimes we do them and sometimes we don't. It just depends on the teacher's feeling about that. So I would like to offer you the opportunity to do prostrations here today. So we'll do basically in the form of deep bows. So a prostration will look like this. I'll go for refuge to Buddha. I go for refuge to Dharma. And I go for refuge to the Sangha. And the idea is that the prostrations are a physical act to show where you get your support from. What supports you in your life? So in the temple here, we recommend support should come from the Buddha as a role model, the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, and the Sangha, the community of practitioners that support us. So you'll join me if you feel comfortable. I go for refuge to Buddha. And please chant along with me if you'd like. I go for refuge to Dharma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. Thank you. Please have a seat. Hear me okay? My name is Kunga Nyima. I'm senior Dharma teacher here at the temple, teaching monk. So it's good to see so many people here, really a full house. When you came in, you should have received a little survey to give you a chance to share some of your thoughts about the temple and about how our space, what our space means to you, what you like about the space, what maybe you could do without. The reason we're passing that out today is because the Dharma Council is looking into how we might reconfigure or redecorate the space to better support the teachings that we provide here. So in combination with that, my Dharma talk today is called Cultivating a Sacred Space. The temple's space has kind of developed organically over the last 10 years. There wasn't, a blueprint to what we were going to have this place look like when we moved in. There were certain Buddhist sculptures and pictures and paintings and tankas that we had already, and then others that were just collected over time and began to fill out the space. And I think the overriding thought was, whenever someone offered something Buddhist related, was yes, we'll take it. So we've got more. We've got lots up here. We have more things in the basement. Lots of objects to inspire us in our practice. So I wanted to start out my talk today with a little history. I used to teach art appreciation at college, and one of the things that I would talk about in the beginning were about the cave paintings. And the cave paintings in France are thought to be the earliest markings of human beings on their environment to create like a sacred space. So the cave paintings in France, you have to go way back into the cave, into kind of a secluded area, and there'll be handprints on the walls. There'll be images of like bison hunts on the walls. And the thought is that these weren't just decorations, but were actually, the people were putting them on there as a way to create a more sacred environment, maybe to ensure good luck in the hunt, or maybe to thank the animals that were available for them to eat. Those cave paintings are 36,000 to 37,000 years ago, so a long time. I've been in a lot more Christian churches and cathedrals and Buddhist temples. I've only been in a handful of Buddhist temples, but I've been in many, many churches and cathedrals. And what always struck me about those places was their soaring arches and towers. The idea of the architects of those spaces was to create a space so that when viewers came in, when the Christians came in, they would feel this sense of divinity, So you would feel that, take you out of your everyday life into the sacred space where the divinity is present, remind you of that. Now, Buddhism is a little bit different, right? We're not talking so much about taking you out and thinking about praying to a divinity. We are asking you to look inside, look into your own mind to find out, what life means to you, what your spiritual practice is about. It's all internal. So the history of Buddhist imagery that I found online starts about the 1st to 2nd century BCE. And the Buddha wasn't really depicted as a person. They're depicted using like a Dharma wheel or a Bodhi tree or footprints, these sort of symbolic images. The Dharma wheel would be representing the Eightfold Path, and the Bodhi tree where the Buddha attained enlightenment. On the footsteps, I think probably are related to the story where when the Buddha was born, he immediately was able to walk, and each footstep he put down, lotus flower bloomed in his footprints. Later, they would create, as far as temple structures, there would be these large stupa mounds, and they would house relics from the Buddha's body. And people would go to those spaces and circumnavigate around the spaces as a way of showing respect for the Buddha. Nowadays, there are many different types of stupas out there. The Tibetan stupas are really the best known, I think. A little bit more elaborate than those early stupas. So I wanted to go back to when the Buddha was alive, and what did the Buddha say about creating sacred spaces? And what the Buddha said was, go to a remote area, go to the roots of a tree, go to the forest, go to an abandoned huts to meditate. So basically the most important thing, or most important place to practice spiritually was someplace where you could be alone, people weren't going to bother you, and you could just focus inwardly. If you go back to think about the early Buddhist Sangha, the monks were traveling around together in groups. They didn't have very many possessions, just 3 robes and a bowl. They didn't have a permanent residence. They were basically living in the forest. They would get up in the morning, they would go for alms rounds with their bowl to a local community. They would go around and collect whatever food was provided to them, take it back to the forest where they were staying, eat their meal, their one meal of the day, and then spend the rest of the day meditating or discussing the Dharma. The only place where they really had more permanent residence was during the rainy seasons, during the retreats. And during the retreats, they would build these little huts along the edge of the forest. Each hut would hold like 1 monk and be built out of bamboo. I looked at online at what they think those might have looked like, and it just looked like kind of like a little backpacking tent, just a little bit bigger than that, barely enough room to get in and lay down. So, and they would just use those for a few months during the rainy season, when they weren't going out doing alms rounds normally, because the idea was it was too difficult, too muddy, that kind of thing. So thinking about these little huts they were staying on during retreat, maybe think about, the importance of having our own home altars and those little shrines that we put up at home to do our practice at. Venerable Sanshin usually talks to our preceptors about setting up a home altar from the Zen tradition. So I thought I would talk a little bit about from the Tibetan tradition. Usually in the Tibetan tradition, you would have examples of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind on your home altar. So the body might be like a sculpture of the Buddha, an image of the Buddha, or maybe an image of your teacher as like a reference or a representation of the Buddha here on earth. For the speech of the Buddha, you would have a sutra. So like on my home altar, I have a little book of the Dharmapada. But some sutra that you could put on your altar to represent the Buddha's speech. And then the last one, the Buddha's mind. So we're not talking about the mind like our brain, but we're talking about the large mind, the mind that is non-dual, the mind that you cannot really talk about, that we're sort of, when we talk about with words, we're just trying to point to it. And in the Tibetan tradition, that would be represented by like a little stupa, or maybe a crystal, because it's many faceted. I think in our temple here, we have these little bowls of water, and I have a little bowl of water on my altar at home. And I think it's a similar idea. The water represents this clear surface, which can reflect everything that comes in front of it, perfectly. As long as it's undisturbed, it's like think about it like a mountain lake reflecting the sky, and those sometimes, we'll talk about the idea of the lake reflecting the sky and the clouds being like thoughts in your head. So this idea of a clear mind is represented by this bowl of very stable, clear water. As Buddhism has moved, let's see, I want to say about that. As Buddhism moved from country to country and culture to culture, it's really changed a lot as far as practices and what it looks like. And we can see that here in the temple. So if you look at the back wall there, people online can't see this, but what we have is we have 6 different thangkas. So these are like paintings or embroideries of different Buddhist meditation deities. So this comes from the Tibetan tradition. And the idea is that these different meditation deities each represent different qualities, like bodhisattva qualities, like the quality of wisdom, a quality of compassion, equanimity, a skillful means. So in the practice, what you would do is you would visualize these deities with all of their different attributes. So it might be they sit in different ways, like some of them are sitting, some of them are standing, some of them are in lotus posture, some of them are dancing, like I think this one over here is dancing. Some of them are in half lotus. Kind of depends on how active they are. They have different hand positions. So sometimes they're in like the teaching mudra, which is what these Buddhists behind me are doing. Some of them are touching the earth with the hand down there. That's like the traditional Shakyamuni Buddha gesture. They also have the meditation gesture where they have 2 hands at their stomach. And then they'll have different instruments too. Like they might have a vajra or a bell, a flower, a lotus flower, a Dharma wheel, all kinds of different things. And these symbols all relate to the qualities that the picture is trying to represent. And you're taking all these qualities and you're trying to imagine them existing in yourself. And by imagining them that way through your meditation process, you're trying to transform yourself spiritually into this deity which exemplifies all these qualities which you want to have yourself. These qualities of compassion, wisdom, and so on. So then over here on the left here, we have an image of Bodhidharma, and he's got the little Bodhidharma head there. I forget, Sanshin, what'd you call that little head? Say it again? Darumadal. Okay. And so Sanshin talked about Bodhidharma before. And then on the other side with doorway, the smiling, happy Buddha with the big belly and the sack, that's Hotai. So that's like a Chan. He's also Zen, but in China they call him Chan, Buddhist. And I always think of him as being kind of like Santa Claus. And some of the stories say that, in that he's got toys in there and he can give the children as well. But that's from Chinese. That's like a Chinese Buddha image. And then behind me here, we have these more traditional images. I'm not sure what where they come from, which particular culture they're created, but there are these kind of wooden Shakyamuni Buddha images. They all have the teaching gesture. Our Bodhisattva class is learning about bodhicitta, which is awakened heart. And you use the Shakyamuni visualization as a way to generate bodhicitta. So when you're generating these bodhicitta, you imagine yourself as Shakyamuni Buddha, 2 eyes and 2 arms. One hand is in the earth touching mudra. One hand is holding a bowl of precious nectar. Skin is gold in color. Wearing a patched robe of a monk. Has the 32 auspicious signs of a Buddha. And then from the Buddha, he has all these golden lights coming out. And everywhere they hit, everywhere they touch, that person becomes enlightened. That being becomes enlightened. So that's the idea behind that kind of meditation process. One more thing. When you're doing these meditations, these internal meditation visualizations, you also think about the speech of the deity. So when you're doing the Shakyamuni Buddha visualization, you have to say his speech, which is Tayata Om Muni Muni Ma Muni A Swaha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Ma Muni A Swaha. And so you say that over and over, using your mala beads to count your mala rounds as you go. And you say that over and so you're imagining yourself as the Buddha, you're imagining all these beings being awakened, and you're also doing the speech of the Buddha at the same time. And that's sort of just the end of the visualization. There's like 11 points before that to get to that point. I just wanted to share that. since we have these sculptures here. So this is a lot of information. There's a lot of different deities, a lot of meditation deities. There's a lot of different cultures that Buddhism has been displayed in, or has incorporated parts of the cultural heritage into it. So I just wanted to share a quote from Chogyam Trungpa. Any perception can connect us to reality properly and fully. What we see doesn't have to be pretty, particularly. We can appreciate anything that exists. There is some principle of magic in everything, some living quality, something living, something real is taking place in everything. So you remember the Buddha's first instructions were, go to the forest, go to the roots of a tree, go to an abandoned hut to practice. Okay, so it's not necessary to have all these things to practice. I mean, it's wonderful that we have a space where we can practice inspired by all these objects. But we have to remember that all these objects are impermanent and empty of any particular context other than what we put on them. If there was like a disaster and the temple burned down, or if someone drove their car through the front window, which actually happened here at the temple, and these objects were destroyed or damaged, that would be okay. That's just the impermanence of life. We shouldn't get too attached to all these different things that inspire our practice. When we take refuge in the Buddha, we're taking refuge in the Buddha nature that exists within us. We're not taking refuge in the statues or pictures of Buddha that are around here. We're taking a picture of the path that we've been taught. If everything was destroyed, we couldn't come to the temple for some reason. We have everything we need to practice in our own minds, in our own heart. All these sculptures and paintings are precious only because of the meaning we place on them, because of our personal experiences and our understanding of Buddhism. As we learn more about Buddhism, these paintings and sculptures will have more meaning for us. But we have to remember they are not awakening. They are not nirvana. They are just images. Yeah, what they are pointing to is beyond description. In Zen, we say it's like the finger pointing to the moon. There's another Zen saying I wanted to share. To the average person, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. To the student of Buddhism, mountains are not mountains and rivers are not rivers. But to the Buddhist master, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. So the average person sees mountains and rivers and maybe thinks, I'd like to go hiking there. I'd like to go fish there. They enjoy the experience and then they leave. And they maybe not be thinking about how their going there affects those spaces, how their life affects those spaces when they're not there. And they may not be thinking about why they go there, what they take away from those spaces, what those spaces provide to them, how those spaces nourish them. The student of Buddhism, we're trying to learn about how things are interconnected, how things are interdependent. How when we go to those places like mountains and rivers, how it's so much easier to kind of connect with reality and connect with like the beauty of reality. And we realize that our lives have effects on those places. I was thinking about the recent, or maybe it's not that recent, but in the last year, I've seen videos on Facebook of these avalanches in Switzerland. Because of global warming, glaciers have melted, and these avalanches have been created and just wiped out these whole villages. So this is an example, where our activities, that contribute to global warming, create these changes in the mountains, which have causes and effects for the people who live in the mountains as well. However, just to see the mountains and rivers as features of landscapes that we have effects on is not enough. We still need to think about the other qualities of mountain and rivers. So there's the next part that says, spiritual teachers point out that mountains are still mountains and rivers are still rivers. All places natural and human created can have sacred meanings for us and teach us how to cultivate sacredness in our everyday life. So my last quote I'm going to share here is from Dogen. I wrote this downstairs, so if you want to reference it later. This is from the Mountains and Rivers Sutra. And Dogen Zenji is a famous Zen teacher, the founder of Soto Zen. Mountains possess complete virtue with nothing lacking. They are always safely rooted, yet constantly moving. You should study the meaning of always moving. You should study the green mountains. Just because the movement of mountains is not like the movements of human beings, do not doubt that it exists. You should study the green mountains walking and your own walking. You should study walking backwards. If walking stops, Buddha's ancestors do not appear. Walking forward does not obstruct walking backwards. Walking backwards does not obstruct walking forward. This is called the mountain flow and the flowing mountains. So each of us has the opportunity to cultivate sacredness in our own life, in all the spaces that we inhabit. We can consciously decorate these spaces to inspire our spiritual practice, and we can also transform our perceptions to see the sacredness of everyday life. So, thank you very much. We'll now prepare yourself for meditation, please. So I invite you to sit in a comfortable position. If you've been sitting on the cushions and you're uncomfortable on the cushions, we do have chairs available. If you're sitting in the chair, try and sit with a nice straight back, feet flat on the floor. Place your right hand inside your left hand, bring it up against your stomach, just below your navel. Thumbs lightly touching. Pull your shoulders back a little bit, tuck your chin in. Direct your eyes down at the ground, or close your eyes if you like. Put your tongue at the top of your roof of your mouth, behind your front teeth. Mouth relaxed, slightly open. And during the meditation, we recommend you just start by being aware of your breath and counting your in and your out breath. So breathing in, breathing out, counting silently to yourself 5, breathing in, breathing out 4, all the way down to 1, then restart over. If you feel comfortable with that, you're not losing count, then just let go of the counting. Just be aware of your breathing in and your breathing out. And as you maintain that, you can just let go of that and just be aware of awareness. Can we bow? So at this time, we have an opportunity to share joys and concerns. So in Buddhism, we have the 4 practices of equanimity: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And so the idea is that this is an opportunity for us to all engage in that practice. You know, we can, when people share challenges or hardships, we can wish them to have relief from that suffering. We can express, you know, send love in their direction. When people are having joys, we can share in those joys with them. And we can realize that everyone in their life is having ups and downs, good and bad things. That's just part of life. And we can just recognize that as a normal part of life and cultivate some equanimity about those things. So if you would like to share joy and concern with the Sangha, just raise your hand and they'll bring a mic around for you. And if you could introduce your first name, that would be great too. Thank you.
Hello, Sangha. Nandapula Bhava or Craig. My whole meditation was thinking about what I'm going to say at this moment and laughing at myself about how far in the future I am. And then now I have no idea what I'm going to say. So I have a couple of joys and concerns. My birthday was yesterday, so that was really exciting. Yeah, 43. I turned 43 and I'm sober 28 months tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. Yeah, so I have a concern. The guy that I'm sponsoring is really struggling with his addiction, and we're trying to help him navigate. We're getting into a recovery program. I have a sorrow and a joy, and the two things that are interlaced between them. A good friend that I met here from the Buddhist recovery meeting on Monday gave me a call. He's 13 months sober, but his father passed away, and which is a sorrow experience. However, at that point in his life, he's willing to call other people to talk about those things is amazing progress. And then the opportunity for me to offer joy to one person in the morning and help relieve the grief of another person in the afternoon. It was in one moment, but it was really encouraging and just a really beautiful moment. And then a last joy, and this is just so amazing that this is where I'm at in my life. 5 friends, we watched Fallout yesterday. And I have no idea what took place in those 2 episodes of Fallout. No idea at all. But we joked around, like, and it was just so organic, just like, oh, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. Like 5 guys just making some jokes about Fallout. A lot of spirituality, because we're all in a different thing. We use a lot of spiritual humor. But it was just an extremely fulfilling birthday for me.
I'll share a joy. My daughter started a new job yesterday. She's working. She's in Lansing. She's going to Michigan State, and she is she's gonna graduate this year. But she wants to go to medical school. So she was able to get a job working with a doctor who does who takes on students who want to go into medical school and give them experience, teach them how to take blood pressure and give shots and things like that. And so this is her first day. She really enjoyed it. And so sounds like it's going to be good. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kate or Ambo, and I have a joy. My son-in-law has been struggling with cancer of the throat and voice box for the last several months. And he just finished chemotherapy and radiation. And he's been 2 weeks since he finished that, and he's starting to feel better. And he's very grateful and happy. And My daughter is also grateful. She's grateful that she's been able to care for him, but I think now she can experience some relief from all the care she's been giving them. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Do we have any joys and concerns online? Okay. All right. So we'll take a minute to take those joys and concerns into our heart, and you can practice some Tonglen during this practice. So that what that means is if you've heard some suffering, you can kind of breathe that in, and then you can transform it or purify it in your own heart, and you can breathe out joy or relief from suffering to that person. If you've heard something joyous, you want to share in that joy, you just kind of breathe in those positive things that have been shared, bring them into your heart to nourish yourself. And we bow. All right, so we have temple announcements. So if you get, hopefully you get our newsletter, and all the announcements are listed in the newsletter. So if I don't hit something on there, just know it's because I don't have a list here in front of me I'm looking at. So Wednesday nights, we have a meditation group from 6 to 6:45. If you're interested in attending that group, let me know. Thursday mornings, we have a Dharma discussion group led by Venerable Jingsu. And what is that start at 9 o'clock? 9:30. Okay, and that's here at the temple also. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we do have recovery groups. Mondays and Fridays, they meet here at the temple, and Wednesdays at the Al-Anon Club. And I think those are in the evenings around 6. We have a retreat coming up. 6:30. Okay, 6:30. We do have a winter retreat coming up on the last Saturday of this month. The retreat from 9 to 4. You can sign up for that online. It's a day of practice. Really encourage you to sign up if you haven't. It's not very expensive. You get a full day of practicing together. We have a vegan lunch together, practice mindfulness of eating also at that time. So even if you've never done a retreat before, you're invited to come. If you can only come for half the retreat, you're welcome to do that too. Just plan on coming either at the morning or around 12, lunchtime. And then so you like stay for the morning half from morning till lunch, and then leave after lunch, or come at the beginning of lunch and then leave at the end at 4. So just invite you all to attend that. Thinking there's not anything else going on this month here. Anyone else have anything else they wanted to share? We do have another group that's online. It's in the newsletter. It's a Tibetan meditation group. It meets on Thursday nights from 7 to 8:30. You can join that via Zoom, and the information's on our newsletter. And that's free just by donation. It's really good group. We're learning or studying the Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa. So if we could have our Dana announcements. No, I can do them. Okay. So the temple is funded entirely by your donations, Dana. So we appreciate financial donations. There are Dana boxes at either in there and also downstairs. You can put in money. You can also do donations through like PayPal on the temple website, the newsletter. I think on the Zoom page, there's all these little places where you can click on to make donations. Really appreciate that. If you aren't able to donate financially, we can appreciate your help. The people who light the incense, the people who greet you at the door, people who help clean the temple are all volunteers. All the teachers are volunteers. So we just appreciate any help you can give us to keep this place going. I mean, this is a very unique space. If you look around in Michigan, I don't think there's any other places quite like this where you can practice Buddhism. And so help us keep it going with your volunteering and your donations. Thank you. And at this time, we'll all stand up and we'll do our closing gathas. This is in your chant book. Page 6. Now as one for them all, past the road of passion, a formless field of affection. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings one body I vow to liberate. In this fine passion that thou uproot, dark gates without number I vow to enter. The great way of Buddha I vow to attain. Everyone take the center. So if you're at your leaving, we do have feet downstairs. You have to join us for feet. But please look at your cushion, try and make it straight and orderly. Let for example, someone will be around to take it from you.